Welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, president of Texas Values. Great to be with you on another glorious week in the state of Texas. How you doing out there, Texans and anybody else from across the world that's listening to our podcast? Because there are people in quite a few other countries that watch this on Facebook and through our podcast that we get, from our data that we collect. And so you never know. But the show is focused on the work we do in the state of Texas. We talk about the issues of faith, family, and freedom in the arenas of the courts, the legislature, in the media. What an absolutely extraordinary week it's been for the issues of faith, family, and freedom. We're going to get into a lot of discussion about the elections in just a minute, but I have didn't get a lot of sleep. I was up late, like probably you were, watching election results Tuesday night. Maybe you're not quite as obsessed with it as I am, but my kids were up. They're old enough now to sort of understand more and have a little bit of investment or interest in what's going on, so that was pretty fun. Also, my puppy, I guess he's hardly a puppy now, 6 months. Red was running all over the place. He was excited about, just the energy and interest in the room, if you will. I'm speaking for him. He didn't tell me that, okay? But nonetheless, I got up early Wednesday morning. I had a meeting at 11 o'clock in Dallas that was something I could not miss. I knew it was on the calendar, but didn't get a lot of sleep, but, drove up and had a couple of good meetings yesterday to connect with some folks, and still digesting the election results. But what an absolutely historic week, not only for America, for Texas. And we'll dive into some of the details in just a minute. But, I think that, a lot of people don't pay quite as much attention to elections as I do and other people that care about some of our work. But we could see it bubbling up. We could see the Save Women's Sports issue, the gender transition issue on kids and so on, the transgender activists, if you will, overplaying their hand so many times. We see Democrats leaving the party of Democrats, leaving their own party to become Republican because some of these issues. But there hadn't yet been an election cycle where it had become quite so obvious to the rest of the public. That changed Tuesday night because whether you're talking about the U.S. Senate race here in Texas or the presidential race and many others at the local level or the House district or congressional district or whatever, there is no doubt that those issues were a factor in the outcome. And look, I'm encouraged that voters are starting to understand it more and realize that when it comes to the ballot box, these issues are there. Now, the life issue was on talked about a lot, and the liberals and the pro-abortion people spent a lot of money, $500 million, to make that an issue. And, I think they made some dents here and there. There was a couple of states that did vote in favor of allowing abortion and having it on their state constitution. I'll talk a little bit about that. But overall, it was mixed results for them throughout most of the country. And in Texas, I don't think it was a factor at all, as much of the money they spent. And because many of their positions on the life issues are very extreme, and there were things more pressing, the economy, inflation, and border security, and some of the other issues that I mentioned, the Save Women's Sports and the gender transition issue on kids becoming much more important, and a lot of great marketing and campaigning done on those issues, thanks to our good friend Riley Gaines. But somebody who's got more data than I do is going to be our guest today on the Texas Values Report. This is his first time to come on. We're excited about having him. I saw him over the weekend. He was at our gala in the Dallas area and came to one of our events in September. We've got to talk from time to time, still getting to know each other a little bit as he's new to the job, and but he's not new to this type of work. The Republican Party of Texas State Chairman Abraham George is going to be our guest today on the Texas Values Report and talk about all things election and who knows what else. Abraham, welcome to the show.
Oh, glad to be here, Jonathan. Thank you for all the work you do.
Well, I appreciate it. Okay, so right now, before I forget, because this isn't, every week's important, okay, on the show, but this one's pretty important and timely, so I want to make sure that I share our Facebook live feed just so we can have a little bit more exposure. Maybe a few more people will be a part of the conversation and the chat. Let me just share this to my Facebook page here. People want to post some comments. I see somebody's already jumped on. Okay, you misspelled Kamala's name, just by the way, Brian, who dropped a comment. Look, historic night. Okay, you and I were talking before we came on about the election results that I think shocked a lot of people, surprised a lot of people for whatever reason. I mean, there's always some uncertainty, when you come into big elections and there's a lot of campaigning, a lot of money being thrown around, you're not sure what to expect. But the results, I mean, they could have been better, I guess, for Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, but it's hard to imagine that you could have a better night than the two of them did. Tell us about sort of your first reactions when you saw the numbers coming down, and, it was certain, not only that, and not that there aren't important races, but these were the two big ones. When you noticed Ted Cruz was going to win, and then later on in the night when it became clear Donald Trump was going to be the 47th president of the United States.
Yeah, that was an amazing night. I mean, I got to tell you a little story. I was at the Ted Cruz rally or the watch party, and Fox News called for Ted Cruz, and it was only like 70% of the votes coming in at that point, and everyone's a little. But we looked at Dallas and we looked at Harris and Travis, and all of those numbers are already in, which means the rural list hasn't come in yet. So we're like, oh, if we can get this number at this point, we're going to be at least 10 points. And it came to about 10 points, which is amazing. That was a huge applause, and people were just excited. The internal polls did not show that much of a spread. It was 4 points, 5 points, sometimes 7, sometimes coming back to 3. So we were worried about it for a while. I mean, the whole
everybody was, right?
All the money.
Senator Cruz was worried about it. I think 2 days before Election Day, he sent out a message, and maybe even the day before that, it's neck and neck, it's tied. I think one of his subject lines was, "I'm worried," right? I mean, very direct to the point. And most of the polls, I mean, there were some polls that showed that it was a statistical or virtual tie. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. All right, so you realized Cruz is going to win, and then a couple of hours later, well, probably 5 or 6 hours later, it became obvious that Trump was going to win. And I saw Fox News call it. Well, Newsmax, I think, called it first. But Fox News, what was that like for you?
Well, I was watching Fox News, and President Trump, we knew he's gonna win. We just didn't know the margin, right? So last time in 2020, he won Texas by 52%, and we're like, that's not that great. But this time around, he lost 12 counties out of 254 counties we had. I mean, every county came in for him. He won Williamson County. He won Tarrant County. So this was amazing. Then to see that so many swing states coming to our side just blew it up, out of the water. So that was an amazing night. I really did not go to sleep until about 5:30 in the morning, and I woke up at 6:30 in the morning because I just couldn't sleep. It was an amazing night for America, for Republicans. And especially the Republican Party state of Texas. So that was a great night for us.
Well, look, and I mean, it's not always that way for some people. There are others, but when you work on an issue that like everybody knows about, right? You play the Super Bowl and it's like everybody's watching. So you go to work the next day and everyone knows, oh, your team lost or whatever. I mean, this is one of those things, right? Everyone, for the most part is paying attention, and not just in America, across the world, right? I mean, you're talking about the President of the United States, the most important and the most well-known government position ever, in my opinion, but certainly in recent and modern history. And so in the way social media and technology now is, anybody can watch from anywhere, any hole in a cave, so to speak. But whether your side wins or loses, right? There's no way to really, have someone not mention it. You're in a leadership position for the state of Texas, which is one of the most talked about states. I mean, the Senate race was the most expensive Senate race in the Texas history, maybe ever in our country. And so a lot of focus on that. And we know Ted Cruz gets a lot of attention. And so that can lead to a lot of stress or just, a little bit of anxiety, wondering like, we better win this thing, right? And you just don't know. But I do think it's telling, right? President Trump, 57% in Texas. The difference between him and Kamala, I think, was at least 14 points. Absolutely, huge, decisive, sweeping victory for him that I don't think a lot of people expected, certainly hoped for. People certainly worked for that. There's no doubt. All right, so that's the the headline. I want to back up for just a second and go in reverse and let people learn a little bit more about you. You and I have spent some time together, and I know some people in the North Texas area probably knew you a little bit, SREC and some of those different things. But your time as the Republican Party of Texas chair, which has a convention that I hear is the largest political convention in the country, if not the world, pretty big platform that you're in position. But maybe some people that haven't got to know you yet. Let me just throw a couple of little data out there for folks. Moved to the United States when you were 16 years old, originally from India. UNT MBA degree from University of North Texas. You served as Collin County GOP chair. I think you were on SREC at one point. Ran for Texas House in the area, and then recently became Republican Party of Texas chair in May. And I know you've got a business background in the software industry. What else do you want people to know a little bit about you, personally and also professionally as you settle into this position?
Well, that's the main thing is like, I was not born and raised here, came from India, came here the right way. My dad and mom were Pentecostal preachers. My dad still is, and mom passed away a few months ago. Grew up in that kind of household. Church was everything. You when you're a preacher's kid, you're the guy who cleans the church. You're the guy who sets everything. The putting the chairs, and people know that. So from doing that to going to politics, it's like, so was my grandfathers. Both grandfathers were preachers as well. So I kind of ended up in politics, and I tell people that, like, okay, there's multiple problems with me. One, I grew up as a Pentecostal preacher's kid. Now I attend a Baptist church, which, I kind of make a joke about. My dad's praying for me to come back to Christ and all that. But, but in Texas, it works. People understand the difference. Then the other is, going from a church background to politics. And, politics was not something that you thought about during your life as a church pastor's kid. And it was like one of the things you don't get involved. But, I'm glad I'm involved in this because I believe the church and politics in our nation especially have to go hand in hand. When the church walks away from politics is when we have problems like gender modification of minors coming into the public square. That's when we have problems like boys playing in girls sports and things like that. It's very unfair, very immoral things coming into our public square. So that's kind of my background. One of the reasons I got involved is when Obama ran, he expected all the minorities, and the minorities community was kind of like on his side, mainly because he's black. And I just didn't like it. And so ended up going to Dallas County GOP headquarters and started talking to them and never left. So it's been like, 15, 16 years now. So it's been a great journey and be able to make huge differences and be part of that. It's always a huge amount of people, a bunch of people doing one thing that moves the needle, and just be part of one person in that whole group is just been an amazing experience. So, this election is just been crazy. I mean,
you started off really well. That's going to be one of the challenges, right? Moving forward, it's like, how can I do better than 2024? Because it's a pretty high bar, and but that's a good thing. From as far as you settling into this position pretty recently, probably a lot of people wondering, okay, this is a big election. You're on the job, so to speak, 4 or 5 months, and you've got one of the most watched and talked about and important presidential elections in recent history, if not ever, in some people's opinions, and then a Senate race that, as I mentioned, historically, big number. Speaking of race and ethnicity and those things, Trump had some good numbers on Hispanic vote, but Cruz won Latino voters, Hispanics, however the media decides to describe, my people, if you will, by 6 points, okay? So he lost the Hispanic vote by 29% in 2018. Fast forward 6 years later, he's +6, 35-point swing. I didn't pull that data. Somebody else, some reporter did, and I'd give him credit if I could remember his name. But that's a huge swing. We saw that in South Texas, and that's where my dad's from. I'm not saying everybody in South Texas is Hispanic, Latino, and votes Democrat or whatever, but many of them do, and many of the people that live there, whatever their background is, that's historically the case. A lot of counties flipped, right, from Democrat to Republican. Many of them had already started trending that way. Myra Flores didn't win her congressional seat, but Monica De La Cruz wins re-election. Adam Hinojosa wins that big Senate seat on the border. That, I don't want to say it was a shock, but it certainly seemed like a long shot, and it's going to take a while for people to recover from that. And so you're seeing this broadening of the Republican Party. Is it Trump? Is it other factors? I think it's the principles mainly that the Republican Party stands for that you're seeing a lot of minorities, if you will, and people from, different ethnic backgrounds that are relating to. I saw that when I was at the RNC. You look at some of the speakers that were there, but yourself is a great example, right? I mean, and not to make too much of it, but I think it's notable and it makes sense to talk about it. I mean, here's Vivek, right, on the national stage, probably one of the most prominent Indian Americans, or however he likes to describe himself, that took the national stage in politics. I got to meet him. He greeted the Texas delegation at the RNC in Milwaukee. You were there and got to hear him. You and I have talked a little about this. The community I live in the northwest part of Austin, very strong Indian community. We see that up in Collin County, and just other examples of how you see, the black vote that came in a lot stronger for Trump. And so I just think a lot of people are paying attention more, or the Democrats are becoming so extreme that people are looking for options. And a lot of it is, how am I doing? How's the economy doing? And am I safe? Economy, border security, big issues for Texas as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things minorities hate the most is you bunch them together into a place where, because your color is this, you have to be this. That right. Most people hate that, and I think Kamala Harris's campaign did that intentionally. Barack Obama came out and said all the brothers are not supporting her.
Unbelievable. I mean, they don't even hide it. They just continue to go. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
Yeah, I know. So I think what happened is it's not just the election. I believe just like you have a product and the product needs a great marketing campaign. I think for Republican Party, Trump was the greatest marketer in last 30 some years or so. So to show that, hey, we're not a racist party, we don't care about where you come from as long as you have the right values. And for him to push that and say, hey, we're going to stand for law in our country. We're going to stand for things that matters to the American people. And Trump can say things in such a way that most politicians can't or
you're
won't,
right.
And then still honestly get away with it, and people love that. People are kind of tired of the same old politician. So, you mentioned Vivek. He's probably the most prominent Indian American politician in the United States today. And having, and this is the other thing, when I got elected to the Texas GOP chair, not a single person really celebrated, hey, we had our first Indian American, right. Chairman. And
because it's not like it was a goal. It naturally happened, that.
Yes, it didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter. And I want to say it this way. I do think it's notable, right? It's something for you and I to talk about, but on the reverse side of it, because it didn't matter, but it's an indication of how you see a lot of diversity, if you want to use that word, or just at least a lot of, broadness, big tent, whatever you want to call it, that it's the principles, it's the issues that are the strength, no matter where you come from or what you look like.
Yes, Americans, especially Texans, are now looking at, okay, how much does it cost to buy a gallon of gas and milk or, things like that. They don't care if you're brown or black or blue or green, whatever the color is. All they care about is where is your values, and that mattered to people. And that's why this sweeping victory for Republican Party, and be able to market that in such a way. We spent millions of dollars doing this. And
in the Senate race, over $100 million spent, collectively, more than that. George Soros dumped, who knows how much, close to $100 million, if not more, into Texas. Okay, let's talk about a couple more victories, and then I want to talk about what's next for the state legislature, maybe what's next for Trump, the state of Texas. Always more work to do. Not a lot of time to rest. But I mentioned this, I think, in the intro. So Denise Villalobos wins this seat near Corpus Christi, or in the Corpus Christi area, House District 34. Probably not expected. Don McLaughlin wins the House District seat 80, the former mayor of Uvalde. That was a seat by Tracy King, who many know has been sort of a conservative, moderate, Democrat, whatever you want to call him. But, 60-40 almost in that race for Don McLaughlin, pretty significant. But those are two big House pickups. 88-62, I believe, is the split now, Republican versus Democrat in the Texas House. So, how does that factor into school choice and who's going to be the next Speaker of the House?
Well, having those two additional seats just helped a lot for the Republican Party and the Republican caucus. I believe we're going to have a speaker who is going to support our priorities, our values. It doesn't matter who that is. I mean, we haven't endorsed anyone publicly,
sure,
but we have two strong.
And I don't mean that who that is like putting you on the spot.
Right.
That's sort of the question out there. People are talking about, and that the members need to be thinking about deciding. It's my understanding there's a meeting set for December 7th where the House Republican caucus is going to meet.
Yeah, and the idea is, our whole thing is, if you can find a speaker who will put no Democrat chairs, who will have values that matters to Texans and the Republican Party, which our 8 priorities, one of them is no Democrat chairs, talking about gender modification issues, talking about a school choice. So we are going to get a school choice, and I think Governor Abbott's on it, and so is Dan Patrick, and next speaker will be on board with that, because if not, I don't think they're going to get elected as the speaker. And in Texas, you can remove the speaker almost any day.
Oh, I know. I remember the first session I worked, 2007, Tom Craddock was the speaker, and he was a little bit on shaky ground. I don't remember all the reasons. I was kind of new to the game. There might have been some other things going on I wasn't aware of. But, the last couple of weeks of that legislative session, they were, trying to take votes to vacate the chair. It was quite interesting and wild. Let me back up for a second, though. Don McLaughlin, it's reported that he supports school choice. I saw a picture of Adam Hinojosa and Denise Villalobos with Governor Abbott talking about the school choice issue. So I think some good evidence out there that those 3 new Republicans coming in the legislature are supportive of those issues. But that's going to be the big thing moving forward. Look, Texas got a lot of attention when you and I were there, when I was serving personally as an RNC delegate. I know that the President of the United States is not Texan, but I think Texans are going to show up pretty well in D.C. for the inauguration. And also, I hear Brooke Rollins' name getting thrown around as possibly coming back to the Trump administration, and other names, Ken Paxton, who knows. But one way or another, I think you're going to see a lot of, relevance of Texans in this Trump administration. You agree?
Oh, I agree. I think we're going to have a really good delegation from Texas going there, from top to all the way to, small appointments and all kinds of stuff. And Texas, I don't think any other state came for Trump the way we did. We being a red state, even red.
I will tell you, Oklahoma, at least it was reported that every county in Oklahoma went red for Trump. They're smaller than we are, okay? So I'm not trying to, be critical of you, but, there's always a little bit more to work for. But, yeah, I think as far as the big states, the ones that matter, I think you're right about that.
Yeah, we have 12 counties we need to flip for Trump. So
good luck with Travis.
Yeah, well, I know, but it wasn't a bad numbers. I mean, we were, 40 some points, which is not too bad from where we were 4 years ago. So I think even Austiners are starting to realize, okay, this is not working for us. The crime, the problems Austin has, it's starting to get people to move to the Republican side.
Well, look, and that if you can't pay your bills, the rest of the issues don't typically matter as much, and that's where it is for a lot of people, even people that are doing well in the Austin economy. The price of living, the cost of housing, all those things are just really really choking people, whether you're on the right or left. And so, okay, we're going to run out of time in just a minute. But as I mentioned, a couple of notable things. December 7th, the House Republican Caucus has said that they're going to meet, and supposedly that's when they're going to take an internal private vote, if you will, about who they're going to rally around for Speaker of the House. Could it be Dave Phelan or David Cook? There's not anyone else announced, if you will, that seems to be in the mix, but you never know what's going to happen in one of those meetings. Legislative session starts second week of January. Anything else notable for the Republican Party during that time period you want people to know, or just some, last second or, wrap up of the election before we close?
I think we're going to have a really good session. I think we're going to get most or all of our priorities, and party is going to be campaigning hard against any Republican who is not on our priorities. That's just it's the way to do it. People were unhappy with when we did that 2 years ago, but I think that is the reason why we won in such a landslide this time. The party is standing for what is right for the people, not just a kumbaya team. So we're going to have fun. This is going to be an interesting session for sure.
Yeah, well, look, as the sweatshirt has that my son has from Ben Shapiro, facts don't care about your feelings. I mean, the details are there, the numbers make the case, and it's not necessarily to explain a whole lot when you win by such a large margin of victory, and that was certainly the case for Republicans, definitely in Texas on Tuesday night. Abraham George has been our guest today on the Texas Values Report. He serves as the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. Thanks, Abraham.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm literally out of time, but I'm going to squeeze 15 more seconds. I wanted to keep that going because he had such great information, a lot of interest in that coming off the elections Tuesday night. We haven't had him on the show, but if you see value in our work, txvalues.org, make a donation today. That's how we can protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. Also, our partner group, our affiliated group, Texas Values Action. We're putting a lot of great data out there, intel, a blog post, an email we sent out yesterday. Check social media for sort of some wrap-up commentary and insight, digging into the numbers and the details. By the way, if you don't believe me, NPR says that the transgender issue, as they described it, which means save women's sports and protecting kids from child gender transition and puberty blockers, was the top two, or if the number three main issue that mattered for the election for voters in the Ted Cruz race in the Senate, and certainly mattered in the presidential race. So kudos to y'all out there, supporters of Texas Values and people that care about these issues. We certainly worked hard to educate people and voters and say, listen, this is on the ballot in one way or another, and here's why it matters. Riley Gaines, Paula Scanlon, Jen Evans, all kinds of amazing people, Cassidy Comer, young ladies that made their voice heard, and certainly, stormed into the relevance and the ballot box, if you will, this cycle. And so more to talk about. Check out our website. You see value in our work, make a donation. Texas Values is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So we hope you invest in the work that we do. And that's how together we can protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.